Okay, what is on the schedule today? I spoke to actually the buyer of it was a short sinew-backed bow with a very elaborate painting. I think it might be if my YouTube channel, you go to whatever the name of my YouTube channel is. John J. Riggs Archery, probably. And at the top, there's just, I think it's that beautiful bow, very intricate painting. The buyer of that. And added them to the pizza box, 62-inch, 55 at 27-inch draw, Osage, I don't know, I say Osage. I want to be fancy. I want to be like a fancy person, Osage. And Seigneur, pretentious, like a French person. Recurved a little bit, flat bow with a floppy rest. At first there was a discussion about an arrow rest, and I'm not anti-arrow rest. I've literally have never made a bow with an arrow rest. So, good guy. He's like, "Are you comfortable with that?" And I said, "Well, what about a floppy rest? It's like a piece of leather that's kind of wrapped into the hand wrap, and you just flop it there, and it'll keep your hands from getting chewed up if the leading edge." Again, I'm being pretentious. Of your seigneur is a little off, which happens. How many of us have not like shredded the webbing between our thumb and first finger? We just keep on shooting arrow fletchings going through our skin and stuff. But the floppy rest is a good alternative. And it'll give you an even placement of the arrow on the bow. And you can always, if you've got a symmetrical bow, I'm like multinational today, yeah, forget that. You could always put it into the hand wrap on either side. If you decide you want to be left-handed someday, you can unwrap it and put the floppy there. I don't know. Again, I am not anti-arrow rest. I just have literally never made a bow with an arrow rest before. Okay, in other news, getting this thing ready. Nice and even. Beautiful tiller. Let's see what we have here. Nice, smooth. We're looking at 60 pounds. I don't know. I was talking about some red oak. You might have issues with, 60 pounds. Maybe I'll knock 5 pounds off of it just to be sure. But, I don't know. You get the mental feeling of this, and I think this would be fine at this weight. If you cut it down to 27 inches, boom. If you take your draw length and you add an inch, it's actually like changing the length of the bow 2 inches. So if this is 65, which it is at 28, and draw it to 27, and it's 60 pounds, it'd probably be okay, but just as a matter of safety, because I don't, old man moment. I don't want it to ever have like a compression line, but I don't know. That I had that heavy one, that had the diamond pattern. It was like, this is giving me the vibe. That's why I didn't want to release it into the general public. It's like this bow, the heavy diamond one, is giving me the vibe that it will have issues. This one is not. I'm not too sure what I should have asked them. Normally it's like when you take a bow commission, it's like, how heavy do you want it? And for some reason, I was slacking. I never asked Steve, how heavy do you want your bow? What's your draw length? It's like, but I have to admit, some people will buy something like this. They'll take it out and shoot it. They've got other bows. But like Eli, I don't think he's ever shot his Raven bow. It's fine. It's in his man cave. It's hanging up in a place of honor. But shoot, I'd take this thing out and flight shoot it. Yeah, I'm getting old. It happens to all of us. You know, we start transitioning from our physical strength to being wise and strong in mind and psychology and philosophy. It's okay, I'm still a cool guy to hang out with even though I can't draw a 75-pound bow anymore. Beautiful raven bow, oh my gosh. And can you see it? That little transit, you know, sometimes it's just the subtleties that add the cool factor. That little, there we go. You can see that sharp spine going down there. Gorgeous bow. You know, there's been times when I've made paddle bows and sold them red oak, unbacked. It's like, I don't even want to put a handle on this thing. It looks like Swedish furniture. And if you're familiar with furniture, wow, I love the shape. I've never gotten tired of my paddle bows. It almost looks like the Sudbury bow. If you're not familiar with the Sudbury bow, look up the Sudbury bow. That is another bow that has gorgeous proportions. On to other things. This has gorgeous proportions. And actually, I didn't make this for anybody except myself, this hickory bow. This has beautiful proportions. It is a gorgeous little bow. One of these days, I'm going to make a video showing this, and somebody's going to say, hey, do you want to sell that bow? And I'll say, hey, yes, I do. Then this, you know, I offered it to a couple people, never heard back, so this is now going to be my stave for a bow. I'm going to make this, and I will sell it to you gladly. What kind of bow am I going to make with this? First of all, oh, where's the camera? Look at that. It's actually kind of deceptive. You'd think this is the back. The growth rings kind of turn. They go, eh. Growth rings do that. But can you see? It's fat, 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 fat. That one right there. I'm going to work it down to that one. I've got some leeway here. This is pretty wide. At, I'm going to guess, 1 3/4 inches. 1 3/4. I'm sure I measured it before, but I forgot. And so if it turns like this, I'll be fine, but I'm going to work it down to that first fat growth ring. 1 3/4. This will probably be 15, 16 inches wide as a bow. See, I'm impressing you with my math. So I've got some room to turn it like this because of this angle right here will be like, and then narrow it to get that bow out. What I'm going to do with this one, so I'm going to go to the Encyclopedia of Native American Bows, Arrows, and Quivers, and I'm going to find a bow that, this is 43.5 inches long. I'm going to find one that's 43 to 44 inches long, right? Osage. And this will be following the dimensions of the bow in the Encyclopedia of Bows, Arrows, Quivers, and Native Americans. I'm always blanking here. By Jim Ham and Steve Alley, or Steve Alley and Jim Ham. Co-conspirators in adding to our knowledge base. I'll make an exact duplicate of one of those bows out of this stave. Find one that's that length and make a bow. Now on to commission bows. Well, Steve's. I should have one of these things. I need one of these things. I actually had one and I gave it to my son-in-law and daughter as far as like a group of bows, family bows for Christmas. It's like, hey, you need a paddle bow that's raven painted, along with, I think one of my snake bows with fake raw, or fake, the cloth snake skin. But anyway, getting on to another commission bow I've got. Will's bow, it cracks me up, right? I'm sitting here looking at the other big stave, right? It's like, this is perfectly straight. It is. It was perfectly straight. And for his bow, it's going to be perfectly straight Osage. Well, it's Osage. You know, following the it's rare that you're going to get perfectly straight Osage. But, you know, when you're making like a native style bow, those little ganks and twists, that the propeller twist is going to be worked out of it. They add to it. That is a stave made bow. And I'm to the point where it's worked down to nice growth ring right here. And this was a scary piece of wood, right? Because I started out with a stave for this narrow bow. It's less than 1 1/8 wider. It is exactly 1 1/8, 1 1/8. Mostly I have to refine, now that it's thin, it'll be easier to refine the face shape. They're Osage, you know what I mean? The weird splits that just kind of suddenly appear out of nowhere. Solid wood, and then where the heck did that split come from? And I had one on the side, and I had one on the belly. And I'm working this down thinking, oh, great. I've got a piece of Osage that I thought was big enough for a bow, and suddenly these splits are appearing. It's almost like you're driving along on ice, and then suddenly somebody pulls out in front of you, and it's like, can I stop in time? Well, I stopped in time. I passed beyond those splits and got back to solid wood. I'm 99% sure that this is a solid piece of Osage. You can get internal problems, you know, that you just can't see. It's like maybe there's a split inside here, but I do not believe, and I'll stand behind it, pretty sure this is a solid piece of Osage. This is a good piece of Osage. I'm to the point now where I'll use my eye to refine everything. You know, I don't need to use my scribing tool. After a while, you kind of develop, you know, the same thing with it's beautiful proportions. That's beautiful proportions. When I've tillered bows in the past, you know, you're using a sanding block or scrape or whatever. It's like carefully tillering this bow. And I love I don't know how else to describe it, that magical ability to careful tillering, how suddenly you look down and it's got a beautiful taper. In the case of a natural stave bow, you know, with even growth rings, sometimes you find weird things, especially with knots. You don't get even growth rings throughout, even, you know, depth, even thicknesses from tip to tip. That I can take this and I'll use the growth rings themselves as a guide to tillering. It says relatively, well, they're not thin. They're not super thin. They're medium. And so in the handle section, you're going to see, topographic map style, one or two, like one right in the center, an island, a round oblong thing. Then you're going to see another pinch off of a growth ring, and I'll actually measure it. I'll take a pencil and I'll mark it. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. And then near the tips, it's usually a taper that's not tapered enough to go through another growth ring here. It'll look like just a solid growth ring, quite a bit of distance. But I'll actually take the center, boink, put a line right there. Then growth ring, measure it, why not? By eye, that's even. Then the next one will pinch off, it's even. Then the next one will pinch off a little further down, and then you'll get just one to the tip. And I'll use growth rings to tiller too. Along with, I need to knock a little bit off right there with a sanding block, because we're talking minuscule. The eye, it's a very precise unit of measurement, even bad eyesight's like me. People with bad eyesight like me. What else? On to other subjects. What is one of your machines that you want to just keep pristine? I mean, you over maintain it, right? I've got the 1971 Suzuki motorcycle. Love to maintain it. Get every piece of dust off of it. Put plastic over it in the garage so I don't get any sawdust on it. I want to maintain that machine. I make sure it's got the right level of gear oil. Gear oil is clean. Check the oil. You know, that in the oil injection, the two-stroke stuff. Make sure it's got full tank of gas so I'm not going to get condensation. Keep the chrome as clean as possible. It is 50 years old, so it's not going to have perfect chrome. You know, that's one machine I love to just maintain. My truck, oil, transmission fluid changes. Yeah, in 158,000 miles or 160,000 miles, it's had 3 transmission fluid changes. Very particular about that. I'm about to make an appointment to get the differential, the gear oil and the rear differential change. It has relatively new, they flushed the coolant system. You know, it's got new brake fluid in it. Maintain my truck. That way it's going to last 500,000 miles. If it doesn't, it's a Chevy, you know, 07 Silverado. It's probably going to rust into the ground before then. But so far it's doing all right because I clean it. But the one machine I am really particular about, stump grinder. And I just painted, it's got a exhaust shield, right? And I just cleaned off. It had a little bit of rust on it last night. And I walk by my neighbor's house. Willie's sitting on the porch enjoying the evening, and I'm like, "Hey, Willie, what's going on?" He goes, "Not too much. He's just sitting out there enjoying the evening. What's new with you, John?" It's great having good neighbors. Appreciate that. And I'm like, "Well, I'm doing a little painting to make my stump grinder pretty." And he's looking at me kind of cockeyed because it's not that old. And I go, "Maybe I'm going to chrome the rims." And then he like looked at me like I was a nut. But yeah, I wouldn't mind chroming the rims. That's one machine that like I over maintain. It's going to be perfect forever. That's kind of an interesting thing. The last thing up is, wish there were more radio stations here, especially in the morning. There's we get KLT, and in the morning there's Omelette and Finster, and I have to say, sometimes it just, listening to their morning show, my IQ lowers a point or two. I'm not saying that they are deficient. I'm just saying they're not the sharpest tools in the toolbox, and sometimes it just hurts to listen to them. The one guy, this is nuts. Apparently he can't get a girlfriend, and so he's got an AI girlfriend. He keeps talking about it. When did that become normal? To have a AI girlfriend? That is just, I'm sorry, that's just weird. I often think that like the people nowadays wouldn't be allowed to, if we had time machines, they shouldn't be allowed to enter the 80s. You know, the 70s was a big time for me in high school. You know, the faded blue jeans and the custom Ford vans and all that stuff. That was cool. And then the 80s came along, and I was kind of a person of the 70s, late 60s and 70s. I thought, the 80s is kind of the me generation. But you know what? Looking back at it, the 80s was all about fun. It was. Times were simple. The music was kind of fun. Now I'm getting into social issues. You know, we listen to a variety of music. It's like Deb, my wife, and I will sit outside. Our cement pad, the driveway gets really big in front of the garage door, and we've got like this gazebo set up, you know, for weather protection and shade and stuff like that. And we'll just sit out there. Maybe have a beer, you know, just enjoying the peace and quiet of a well-maintained, very crime-free little city. And, you know, in some respects, there's a high poverty rate here, but still people are civilized and they maintain their properties. It's a nice spot, very quiet. Not like the west side from whence I come, Harbor Springs, Petoskey area, which is just overrun with people. But sometimes we'll listen to, like, you know, it'll be country music, listening to George Strait and classic outlaw country, you know, Willie Nelson and Waylon and the Boys. And other nights it'll be like 80s night. We'll listen to stuff like Bobby Brown, I admit it. You know, stuff like Cameo, things like that. And it was just a different time. And now, in some places, popular music, I don't recommend it. I do not recommend it. But if you're curious, um, this, I'm not going to say it. It's a song by Sexy Red, and that woman that was interviewing and thought that when the person said she was a musician, what are you talking about? I don't do magic. Confusing magician with musician. This song they do, it's just music is obscene now. It's just absolutely disgusting. I can't even, out of curiosity, I listened to the song by Sexy Red, and it was just so freaking obscene. I couldn't make it more than 30 seconds in a song. It's like, this is just freaking disgusting. Anyway, I think I've talked long enough. What am I going to do today? I'm going to get this thing tillered up, and then the edges rounded off, heat shape it, get Steve's bowl. Steve's watching this. If you can, yeah, I'm going to knock 5 pounds off of this. Just for safety. It'll still be a nice shooting bow. Maybe, hopefully get a start on Carlos's bow. I'm going to have to split this down, because I've got a stave for the second of these bows, but again, you get these weird splits. That one kind of scares me, so I'm going to get a clean one out of here, and maybe I'm going to search around and find the stave that I'm going to use for Hugh's bow. We'll see. I'm probably going to be able to get it out of this one too. Get Carlos's and Hugh's bow out of this one, but we'll see. And then, in my spare time, I'm going to, I don't know if I want to work this one down to the growth ring today. I might grab a piece of black locust or a piece of hickory, because I want to make a self bow. I want to make an accurate reproduction of a horse bow that's a self bow out of hickory or black locust. But we'll see. Then there was a last thing. What was that last thing? Oh, okay. So I go into my day job yesterday, and I have to say, going from produce manager to the fruit cutter, I am in charge of the cooler that has like the $5 cups of watermelon cubes and sliced cantaloupe and stuff like that. It's actually pretty enjoyable. I get 2 consecutive days off every week. I like that instead of this rotating thing. I don't have to order. I don't have to take inventory. I don't have to stock, the floor. There's like no pressure. Just go in there. I'm going to cut this today. I'm going to cut this. Yesterday I made 24 sandwiches. Overcame my fear. We've made sandwiches our whole life, but when you're making like deli sandwiches, it's a little different deal. You have to be able to cut them in half and hold them in the wrapper so they don't fall apart, and stuff them into this weird envelope-like thing. And then go to the scale and make the tag and stick it on there. It took me twice as long as the other people that make the sandwiches, but I did it. Made the store director happy. But getting back to my point, it's like the new produce manager was like, you picked a really good time to quit being a produce manager, because inventory, right? Once a month you have to take inventory and count everything. How many cloves of garlic do we have? How many pounds of broccoli? How many pounds of leeks? Everything in the produce section, including flowers and all the balloons. And the amount of helium in the tank. You have to count everything in a certain number of hours. Well, anyway, it used to start at 5. You need to be in on this Monday at 5 o'clock and count everything in your department accurately, and then the store director has to go back and audit it, pick 5 random things and see if the numbers jive. It is what it is. It's retail. Well, they changed it. I have to be careful because I'm talking about my job on social media, which, remember, I said that it's mine. I actually enjoy it, and I really like the people I work with, so it's all positive. But they just changed it from the audits. The inventory starts at 5 in the morning on that Monday. to 3 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't even be awake. I wouldn't even be able to count cloves of garlic at 3 o'clock in the morning. But again, it's necessary. They have to maintain how much inventory they have. Because, unlike people that say that grocery stores price gouge, I don't know how grocery stores stay in business. Because when you look at it, the average, what would you say? Blanking again. Gosh, I blank a lot. The average, what do you say that? Much money they make off of stuff. My added income, I can't even think of the word. It's 1 to 3%. It's not like a retail store that sells shirts or something like that, which would be 40%. Grocery stores make a profit, that's it, 1 to 3%. Skin of the teeth. And when you add the perishables like meat or produce, which a lot gets thrown out, 1 to 3% is about as narrow of a profit margin as you could possibly make in any retail organization. So this whole, because of the supply chain, everyone making money up to the point of sticking that lettuce on the shelf, making money on it, they're not price gouging. They're barely staying in business. Barely staying in business. Grocery stores. Well, with that, I will draw this to the close, make some breakfast, get another cup of coffee. Satisfied my requirement. Because there's a group of people out there that want to hear me every day. Last, John cannot shut up. So, I'll have answering viewer questions. In for a penny, in for a pound. Such as the question I had, what is the gram strength or grain strength of your hide glue? Which it might surprise you, if you're going by the classical definition, it would be not grain strength, it would be gram strength, but grain and gram, they're both units of mass, not weight, but mass, so calling it grain strength is allowable. It doesn't refer to the ultimate strength, like how much strength is it pounds per square inch? How many pounds of force do you have to exert to be able to break that square inch bond? It's actually setup time, gel time, viscosity related. If you're an instrument maker, if you're in the sinew bowl backing, or if you're into using whatever with hide glue, you're going to have different gram, let's say grain strengths, because that was the question. And that just refers to viscosity. How much glue is in that mixture compared to the water? And I have to say that I could make a really long video on how I prepare my hide glue. How do I prepare my hide glue for putting it in that baggie, which is a lower viscosity, a higher gel temperature, than in my glue pot that I'd use for sizing. Really, when it gets down to it, I don't have to be that complicated, because sinew itself is basically made out of glue. You can take sinew strands prepared from tendons, chew them, fletch an arrow, and they'll self-glue. They're made out of glue, put simply. So, you probably need less glue than you think you do in that mixture. So it's variable. It's absolutely variable. When you're sizing a bow, the viscosity, how much water compared to hide glue flakes are in there, again, just keep sizing it over and over again until it's shiny and glistening. So don't get tripped up with how much hide glue you have to have in your water. What you don't want to have is so much flaked hide glue that you put in there and you add the water that when it's on the stove top or your double boiler, whatever, it's hot. You don't want it to be like syrup, because you'll take it out and you'll rub it on the back of your bowl for sizing. It won't penetrate as well as a thinner, that first layer of hide glue, and it'll be gloppy. You ever do that? You're rubbing glue on the back and it'll just be gloppy and your fingers will stick and you'll get like a 1/4 inch of hide glue on your fingers immediately. That's just too much. Add some water to it. Thin it down so it goes on smoothly and easily when it's warm or hot. Yeah, basically that's my answer. What is my grain strength? What is my gram strength? Again, both units of mass. Not so much that my fingers will be coated with a thick layer of hide glue when I'm using it. Not so thick that it'll go on gloppy and you'll get like globs stuck on the back of your bow. You want it to be thin enough so it's smooth. As far as if you want to try my wet method, it's all wet method. You know, whether or not you're dipping it in the pot over a heat source or you just have it in the baggie sitting in a warm bath of hide glue or water rather. The baggie just needs to be somewhat amber. Hey, there's glue in there. It's somewhat amber. If it sits overnight out of your refrigerator, just sitting on your kitchen counter, you know, the baggie, and it's kind of it sets up, it gels, and it's just kind of soft. A lot of it is experience. Then that's fine. If you keep your house at 70 and it doesn't gel, it might be okay. Put it in the refrigerator. If it gels in the refrigerator, there's hide glue in there. That's probably enough. It's not much of an answer, but you don't need much of an answer. You don't need to be, you have to have this much hide glue for this much water. It's not that critical. With that, I'm done.